Welcome to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast, where you can learn and be inspired by real-world examples of how technology is transforming businesses and reshaping industries in a language everyone can understand. Here is your host, Neil C. Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast. Now, one of the things that I have learned during my stepping away from my TV, smartphone, laptop, during my break in sunny Crete at the Mythos Palace was how much better I felt just walking away from the constant notifications, media alerts, 24-hour news channels, all trying to convince me that the world is a dangerous, scary place and I should lock my doors, not go anywhere, and in some cases, even not talk to people. I don't know what that's all about. But sat there on a beach with people of multi-nationalities, my senses were heightened to the damaging effects of the media. What if there was a way of finding unbiased news without any agenda or narrative building? And a platform that keeps the viewer's mental health in mind too? And what if I could sit down and learn from people who might have opposing views to my own? Remember those days? Well, you still can, and I found a fantastic company called Newsy. But I don't want to reveal too much yet, so buckle up and hold on tight so I can beam your ears all the way to Ohio, which I believe is also the hometown of my favourite band, The National, but that is a completely different story. But I'm going to beam your ears all the way to Ohio so we can speak with Newsy CEO Blake Sabatinelli, who's going to share their mission at Newsy and how they're using human storytelling, and also share how the network has been able to run smoothly during a pandemic and an election year as well to boot. But let's get him on the podcast now. So a massive warm welcome to the show. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
Sure. My name is Blake Sabatinelli. I'm sure you prefaced that at some point in time, but I like to hear my name, so I'll say it again. I'm the CEO of Newsy, a subsidiary of the Scripps Company here in the States. And, I think at this most basic level, I have the joy of running a news startup. We're focused on nonpartisan, no yelling, no side-taking journalism, kind of the way it used to be. And after 5 years of doing this, I wake up every single day happy to take the human resources calls and talk to our sales team and know that what we're doing is trying to make a difference here, both in the United States and globally too.
And I really think it is such an important role that you're doing here because, yes, it's been said many, many times, 2020 has been an incredibly crazy year. But one of the things that I've learned is that your daily news narrative will depend entirely on what newspaper, news channel, social media platform, or even video channel that you tune into. And we're all kind of ruled by these algorithms. I've got to ask, how much of a problem do you think that news bias is in everything that we're consuming right now?
I think the echo chamber and bias is a critical issue one of the most critical issues that we're facing right now. And, what you watch on the television side clearly has an impact on what you believe. And I think you don't have to really go back much further than last week. Any interview I've been able to do, I can say, look back last week because there's an incident that happens where, in this instance, the Atlantic reported on the president's alleged remarks disparaging service members. You got one side, you got MSNBC and CNN. They went into full echo chamber mode. They brought on guest after guest speaking about how damaging these remarks are. They were horrible remarks, and they doubled down on them. And you had, on the other hand, you thought Fox News might go a different direction than normal. But instead, after confirming the reporting from the Atlantic, they discredited their own reporting and then called the story a hoax and then doubled down on that, pushed back and deflected for hours. If you're a viewer who watches a significant amount of TV news on one network or the other, you're only getting a singular perspective. There's plenty of hate watching, but the reality is if you're a adamant viewer, every single day of a network, the further down you go that rabbit hole, the harder it's going to be for you to be able to understand or listen to another point of view. And I think if you just combine that with the quote unquote fake news movement, And people just really have started dismissing dissenting points of view, no matter what, if they just don't even like it. And I mean, how can we get better as a nation or as, global citizens if we are just unwilling to listen to each other because you're so far into that echo chamber? So I mean, it's problem number one, in my opinion, on the news side of the business.
It really is, and it's something I see over here in the UK as well, because when you surround yourself on a particular social media platform with only everything that you like and dismiss anything that you don't, suddenly we've kind of lost the art to meet somebody halfway and have that debate, haven't we? It's kind of scary.
Yeah, it is. The lack of civil debate at this point is incredibly disappointing. And you can't even go to your family's house for Thanksgiving and have a civil discussion with someone about opposing points of view. Those kind of things are now off the table because it's become so sensitive. People are so angry that the only thing you can do is just ignore the other person's point of view and hope they can get on well enough.
Yeah, or there's also the range of names that are thrown at people straight away now, whether it be Boomer or Karen or Gammon over here in the UK, whatever your opinion is. If the other side would just chuck a name just to shut you down straight away, don't they?
It's just, I mean, it's really a bizarre time to be alive. People would generally say that I like to argue, but I like to hear other people's opinions. And even in my own day-to-day life, you immediately find people going to name calling or yelling that you're fake news once they figure out what you do for a living. And, it's discouraging. I'm hopeful that we as human beings can get our heads out of the sand and move forward from this, but it's going to take some pretty serious change. It's going to take people getting off of Facebook. It's going to take people actually peeking their heads outside and getting a little bit of fresh air before that happens, because you just keep going down these rabbit holes, and like I said, it just gets harder and harder to get out anymore.
And I've got to ask, I mean, was it your curiosity and open-mindedness to seek that unbiased news that went on to become the inspiration behind Newsy, or was it something else? I feel there's got to be a story there, for want of a better phrase. I've been lucky enough to have inherited Newsy. So I'm a long-term employee of our parent company, the Scripps Company, and the initial, point of Newsy when it started with our founder Jim Spencer was to bring multiple perspectives. So he, would look at a story and tell you or report on how Fox News looked at it, how MSNBC looked at it, how the BBC looked at it. That way you could have multiple perspectives to a story. When I was able to come to the company 5 years ago after Jim retired, I really wanted to build upon that legacy with the folks that were here and kind of accelerate beyond other people's perspectives, but really focus on what matters, which is reporting and journalism first. Because that's at its core what we're supposed to be doing. We're supposed to take people places and show them things, not show them people yelling at each other or tell people how we feel about something. That's not your job as a journalist. We've been really fortunate over the time that I've been at this company to, build something that I think's, special and is gaining steam and momentum in a way that, will allow us to continue to be here for another 5 or 8 or 50 years. So I'm excited about that. And for people that are hearing about Newsy for the very first time, because we'll have people listening all over the world, can you tell me a little bit more about your mission and what you set out to achieve?
Yeah, so look, at its core, Newsy's a multi-platform news network. So we say multi-platform because all things are multi-platform now, but we really got our start as a mobile news company and made our pivot into the connected TV space in 2016 and bought a cable network in 2018. So, you can find us all the usual places, cable, your Roku box or your Fire TV, on web and mobile. But we really do believe it's our approach to news and facts first that sets us apart. Our team works incredibly hard on a daily basis to ensure that we're putting facts and only the facts first. So we don't have pundits, we don't have opinion shows. We don't have big roundtables where it's 2v2 on either side yelling about a topic. We bring people stories. We provide them with journalism and give them the ability to hear the story and make a decision that's wholly their own. Our tagline is "Be informed, not influenced," and the only way that we can, stay true to that is by really stepping back, piecing apart every story, and making sure that we're double checking ourselves, bringing forward the information people need, and then putting it in such a way that doesn't get them all hyped up and angry, because that's the last thing we need right now. We don't need more anger. We don't need more yelling and screaming. We need more understanding in this world that we live in. So how does Newsy work? And is it web only, or is there an app? How does it all work? Yeah, so at its core, we have 6 newsrooms across the company. So we're based primarily here in the Midwest of the United States. Our live operations are in Chicago. We have a big bureau in DC, like most folks do, and we produce stories and really distribute them in a highly distributed capacity. So you'll find Newsy everywhere from our website to our mobile apps. To other people's websites, other people's OTT apps, where we distribute shows and syndicate content to them. Like I was saying earlier, we have a cable news network that reaches about 40 million homes. If you turn on a Roku device or a Fire TV device or a Vizio TV, we're generally on the home pages of those, as we're one of the most popular apps that exist in those ecosystems. So we tell stories and we put them as many places as we can. And it's been a good approach for us so far. Excellent. And of course, over in the US, you're right in the middle of an election year, which is almost a great example to showcase today. So I've got to ask, how do you remove bias and deliver news that might challenge people's worldviews rather than reinforcing existing beliefs, and doing all that without pushing an agenda too? Because it's a big, big challenge, isn't it? It's a big challenge, and it's an incredibly hard task. Yeah. No one's perfect. No one that works at Newsy is not a human being who doesn't make a mistake or have an opinion or have their own judgments. But what we've done a great job of is hiring smart people with diverse backgrounds and diverse points of view. So when you do come into a story meeting and you're doing a pitch, it's not just groupthink. It's critical thinking and decision-making around the right way to tell a story, what facts are the ones that are real and the ones that have been spun or have a little bit of disinformation in them. And, working through a smart editorial and editing process to allow us to package that all back up together and deliver it in such a way that's both engaging and free of opinion. And it's hard. Look, I'll tell you, there are mistakes made, but I think by bringing in as many diverse points of view as we possibly can, we've been able to do something that's a lot different than what you can find out there, which is, really a lot of opining instead of storytelling. And I don't think we talk enough about the damaging effects of spreading fear and hate in the news and how it affects our mental health. And over in the UK, I do see a lot of changes over the years in reporting and journalism about reporting worst case scenarios as fact and all delivered without actually naming a source. So that has had its own effects. But is this something that you're conscious about too? Yeah. And look, it's our responsibility to provide people with information in a way that it's not scary. Yeah. Look, we live in scary times today, but it's not our job to make people more fearful of the world that's around them. I think the spread of coronavirus has really, highlighted that for me from a personal level, because I have 2 kids at home. I have a 12-year-old and a 6-year-old. I'm happily married to a wonderful woman, and we spend every evening watching the news. And you can see the fear washing over my wife. This is what I do for a living. It's not all happy times and rainbows in the news business. But when you see your wife welling up with tears, as we found a lot of Americans are in a study that we did, it makes you realize the impact that our stories and our words and our decisions have on people. Because it's on the other end of the television, which live television is one of the most unique mediums on the face of the earth, because you really are. If you're inviting Chance Seals, our anchor of Newsy Tonight, or David Muir into your home, and when they're telling you things that can be scary or tough, the onus is not just on them to walk away, but on you to make sure you're not doing it in a horrifying way. So we as storytellers have to be careful about what we do. But I can tell you that we also have an incredible responsibility. Everything from local news to national news, to keep people connected and to keep them informed in such a way that they can have an understanding of what's happening, and hopefully can parse out that not everything's scary. Things sound scary, but they're not always necessarily always really scary. So providing them with those facts, with the context, the information that they need, can really, in many cases, especially when you do it in a responsible way, allow you to get people to take a deep breath and say, we can get through this. We can make it to the other side.
And we've talked about the election. I've got to ask, how has the pandemic affected you at Newsy? Have you noticed any increase in people speaking out more about balance from their news? And what is your biggest challenges in delivering that kind of balance? Because I think it's something that a lot of people are seeking more, and a lot of people have been woken to wanting that balance. But how has it affected you guys?
The election has been an interesting thing for us, because it was the biggest story of the year when we started the year. Yeah. And that all changed really quickly. We made it 2 whole months before we had to focus on something else. As an organization, I think we're one of the only ones that still has all of our employees at home. I believe that much like my CEO, Adam Simpson, we're putting our employees' health, well-being, and families first. And I think there's a lot of people that are out there doing that. So there's been all sorts of challenges in that. The logistical challenges of telling stories outside of just the bias have been fascinating. And we're so lucky to have an amazing engineering and technical team that has made all that work for us, and very patient anchors and reporters who allow us to have sets in their houses, which is a whole nother can of worms to deal with for anyone who's ever had lighting gear in their home. From a storytelling perspective, look, we're always going to have 20% of people on either side who they just only want to hear their point of view being reinforced on one side or the other. But I do think that the vast majority of Americans, as they've been dealing with the coronavirus outbreak, have become far more thoughtful and compassionate, and are looking for something that is a little bit different. Typical yelling and screaming and fear-based news that you can get, especially on cable. So it's made us step back and really rethink what stories we want to tell, how we want to tell them, and when we want to tell them. What cadence that we want to tell them. Do we want to hit people with a machine gun of facts and news that's really tough? Or do we want to spread it out? And do we want to weave in a note or two about something positive to keep people moving through the news? That way it's not so overwhelming. So it's been fraught with challenges, both from technical and from the people level and everything else. But then also from storytelling. It's been an interesting year, and we still have 4 months to go.
We really do. I've got to ask then, so where do you go from here? What's your end goal at Newsy?
We started this as a team of, I think the original team at Newsy was 8 people. When I came on board, it was around 30. And we've exponentially grown from that. And, our end goal is to really get people to sample and understand and know that there are other alternatives that exist out there, and to grow into a competitor. Building a brand long-term is a long and incredibly hard road. It's the climbing Everest of every CEO's day-to-day life. But we know we're onto something. We know that there is a huge population of people out there who are thoughtful and independent and pragmatic. They're not looking for an echo chamber, and we're there to get them to watch us no matter where they want to watch TV. So in the end, we just we see ourselves as a formidable competitor.
Love that. And for everyone listening, of course, what's the best way for them to find out more information about Newsy, or even contact your team if they've got any questions after listening to our conversation today?
100%. So you can go to newsy.com/watch. It's a great place to figure out where you can watch our programming, whether you are watching on, a TV or on your phone. There's a ton of great resources there. And if you ever have story ideas or opinions, or want to tell us that you love us or hate us, it's feedback@newsy.com. We love hearing from folks. I read every single feedback email, and I have for the 5 years that I've been here. There's some wonderful people out there who are looking for a change in their daily news diet.
Love that. I can't thank you enough for coming on here and not only sharing about Newsy's mission and how the network has been able to run smoothly during the pandemic, but in this world of binary thinking and left versus right, I think just giving people an opportunity to sample and understand something a little bit different and realize that there is alternatives to Fox News or CNN and that long list of media outlets out there. It's so valuable, your work that you're doing. So just a big thank you for joining me today, Blake, and sharing that with the listeners.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me. This has been great.
It has often fascinated me that we have nearly 8 billion people on this tiny planet of ours. And yet, for the most part, we're continuously given a choice of left or right political ideologies. And somewhere along the way, social media and echo chambers have fooled us all into a bad case of binary thinking, where everything has to be black or white, hot or cold. And yet, almost every aspect of our lives usually sits somewhere in that grey middle section. But if you've been thinking, how can I remove bias from my daily news and deliver a news that might challenge my worldviews, rather than reinforcing our existing beliefs without pushing an agenda, then hopefully you found today's interview interesting, because like Blake was saying, there is a way to sample and understand an alternative. Or maybe you've got your own alternative. Whatever it is, I want to hear that too. So please email me, techblogwriter@outlook.com. My website is techblogwriter.co.uk. If you need any help launching your own podcast or help with your business blogs or thought leadership blogs, I can help with all that. But more than anything, I just want to get those questions and your insights and how you consume your news. And if you're becoming increasingly aware of bias and a ready-made narrative each day, I would love to hear your thoughts on that, because I think it's something that affects us all. But enough rambling from me. Keep those questions coming in. I'll be back tomorrow with another great guest, and we'll explore another area of how technology is transforming our lives, business, and even world. But just a big thank you for listening from me, and until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thank you for listening to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast with Newsy Hughes. Remember, technology works best when it brings people together.